Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, did you have a great 4th of July holiday?
I did have a great 4th. I spent some time in San Diego and just took it easy and watched some fireworks and had some great food and visited with some friends. It was a wonderful time.
Awesome. I had a great time too. I was out in Rhode Island and then down in New York City. And, you know, I know this is kind of grounding this episode in time a little bit, which we really try not to do. It's really not important to the subject we're going to talk about today, but there are a lot of events that occurred over this extended 4th of July weekend holiday. I always like watching some Wimbledon tennis, which was fun because there's this.
Yeah, there's a lot of events that have occurred.
Yeah, and there's a nice new American phenom, 15-year-old who did very well. And you know, a lot of great things going on at Wimbledon, but then there was also the Women's World Cup, the FIFA World Cup.
That's right.
And that was exciting to see, although not without some controversy along the way of running up the score, of, you know, celebrations for goals. And, you know, it was a little bit of controversy, but then they won. And I was actually in New York when they had this ticker tape parade in Manhattan. And then this I thought would be a great subject to talk about today, Bill, because, you know, one of the things that we try to figure out is how to have safe conversations, how to have productive conversations, a civil discourse with others about sensitive subjects, political or otherwise. I think more often the political ones tend to be fraught with landmines maybe people don't expect.
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm. So the challenge in having a civil discourse is that there's got to be some form of acceptance that happens between human beings, and it's really challenging because one of the problems that we have, Tom, is we're not in our modern age, we're not very accepting of differences the way we used to be. We used to have a greater sense of acceptance and tolerance for people that were different than us and people that thought differently than we did. And yes, human beings do like the familiarity of being and living in communities that are similar to us, that have similar beliefs. But judging another community, judging another person's behavior was something not as, we were more of an inclusion and a collaborative style, welcoming everybody in rather than saying one group is better than the next group. And that's really where we're getting into a little bit of trouble these days.
Well, and I see it so often. I guess the place I see it the most is in social media.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm really surprised, and maybe I shouldn't be, especially with the conversations you and I have a lot, but I get surprised when somebody posts a message, let's say on Facebook, that is intended to be positive and uplifting and apolitical. They're not trying to make a political statement. How quickly the comments go back and forth and the conversation devolves and it gets divisive. And maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but I see this happen a lot. And I think it's I think we do need to try to have civil discourse and safe conversations with each other about really important subjects, especially when it comes to politics and, our country here in the United States,
Yeah.
many aspects of it. I'm surprised sometimes that what will set people off, and then how others will try to purchase truth to push
Yes.
their agenda from what was a positive message.
That's correct. That's correct. So there's a couple things to unpack in what you just said, Tom. Is the first thing is that how sensitive language is, that people have a sensitivity to language even more so today than they did in the past, and we're much quicker to a fight response, a flight response, non-engagement, a freeze response, shutting up and not saying anything around a dinner with friends because we're afraid that somebody might take something the wrong way. Instead of just moving on from the topic if we don't want to get into it, or learning how to close a conflict and be okay with, well, you believe this, I believe this, and it doesn't have to affect our friendship. Because,
Right.
if you think about like people that have had great experiences with each other in college, or in our adult life, or or in our work life, and we've had these great experiences, and then one thing happens and it throws all of those experiences, those positive experiences, into this rubble pile, saying, well, we had this falling out. What's a falling out? The falling out is my brain reacted in an adversarial way, started treating them as an enemy, or developed an enemy image in their direction. Now they're not an ally of ours, they're an enemy of ours. They're not loyal to us and our values, but they're loyal to the values of the other side, which is mostly not true. There could be a nuance to that. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're more conservative or more liberal, but it doesn't mean that they're in this other tribe.
Yeah.
So the problem then is developing a language of truth that has a sense of awareness that one of those trigger moments took place, and then upgrade the language on our side so that we diffuse what is happening on the other side. So, for example, Tom, on a Facebook post, somebody might start using profanity, or start using a monologue about a belief structure that they think that we have. They read 2 or 3 of our posts. They think that we believe 100% this way. Therefore, we're on this other tribe.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And how to train our brain and our language to speak and gently shift one function. Ready? Here it is, the one function. You shift it from judgment to observation. One little function.
Wow.
Now, many philosophers have talked about this. Many religious, spiritual people have talked about this. One quote that is one of my favorite is the highest form of intelligence. This is not book smart, but here's the quote. The highest form of intelligence is the ability to observe without judgment.
I think that's very, very astute, Bill. It's very hard to do for people, isn't it?
Well, our language doesn't allow us to do it. That's even worse.
Wow.
It's not just hard. It's just, as soon as you have a label or a thought or a judgment or a diagnosis, you're already off of observation. Now, we've talked about the power of observation in the past, but in a Facebook quote, if I think, Tom, you were mentioning, and you can mention the quote that the soccer player mentioned. Right. And because the soccer player has an opinion about something and has made a choice about something, they mitigate or eliminate the quote that the soccer player and what the soccer player is all about, because the soccer player is on the other team and they're not on our team anymore.
Right. So here, let me help paint this picture for our listeners here.
Yes, good moment.
Bill, you and I have a common Facebook friend. We're not going to mention her name here today because it's just not really relevant. But the day that the women's U.S. national soccer team had their victory parade or celebration parade in New York City, they went to the steps of the City Hall in New York, and a few of the players spoke from the podium, one of those being Megan Rapinoe, who was really, I think, the most senior member of the team.
Right. Yes.
She's been there the longest. She, I think, in the finally scoring that last goal,
right,
tied or exceeded the most goals ever scored in, history in terms of that type of soccer. I mean, clearly she's quite a performer, quite a soccer player. And there was our mutual friend on Facebook posted this quote and a link to the video of her speech on Facebook. And here's the quote. This is Megan Rapinoe, U.S. Women's Soccer co-captain is what she is. "We have to be better. We have to love more, hate less. We've got to listen more and talk less. We've got to know that this is everybody's responsibility. It's our responsibility to make the world a better place." That's the quote. This is regardless of what you think of Megan Rapinoe, the person, the soccer player, the maybe activist, if she's becoming that. That's a positive, uplifting message.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's great. Yes, I'm so glad we're celebrating this today. And obviously their victory. And when I have watched over the days since oh my gosh, hundreds of comments on this post, I see people trying to hijack or purchase truth and take it out of observation, like you were saying, Bill, and into certainly criticism and labeling and diagnosis. I mean, some of the people were saying things like, well, they refuse to go to the White House, that's unpatriotic, and they can try to make themselves look good in this moment speaking from the City Hall, or other things like, well, she's a hypocrite because of what that is saying, she talks and talks and talks and doesn't listen herself, directly going after part of her quote.
Of the quote. Right. The quote. Oh yeah, you're the person that talks. You're the person that's not listening.
Right. And boy, it was, and the author of the post, she really didn't expect this. She says, wow, why so many haters is one of her rebuttal comments here on the Facebook post. And I was really disappointed to see it too. But Bill, I guess what I'm wondering is, am I disappointed to see that because maybe I am more aligned with her team, meaning Megan Rapinoe to begin with, and somebody who is not on her team, she's not your person. Do you tend to be surprised at that more? And then somebody who, she's not on my team will inherently be more critical and judgmental.
So here's a couple, let's peel this back because there's three specific things going on here. Okay. Number one, the first thing that's going on here has to do with, here's my identity or who I'm aligned with. And I've put a lot of value into this identity. my identity has a right-wrong opinion about this. Once I've chosen that this person's wrong and I'm right, then what happens is I've got to keep seeing them through that filter, because if I don't see them through that filter, I have to own my judgmental self. People don't like to own their judgmental self. They don't like to own that you're holding the judgment. You're the one that's causing the pain. You're the one that's causing the disconnection. So it's a lot easier to label and diagnose somebody than it is to be compassionate towards somebody. Just let that sucker sink a little bit.
That is like a light bulb, right? Going on.
Right. It's like, how can I just be compassionate to what the message is instead of judge the message because I'm judging the deliverer of the message? Because that's really things. Now, it doesn't matter the spiritual faith that you pick. This is when it gets really wiggly very quick. It doesn't matter the spiritual faith. All of the different spiritualities talk about the danger. And actually, something not to do is to judge someone else. Right?
Yeah.
Almost all are, don't judge someone else.
Yeah.
So, what are you doing judging this instead of observing the message, which is essentially a spiritual inclusion message? I mean, that's the message. It doesn't matter who the deliverer is. Now, this is when it gets really weird too, is if Jesus says it, or Muhammad says it, or Abraham says it, or Moses says it, it's like it's still the message. Or the Buddha says it, it's still the message is inclusion, kindness towards another person, acceptance of differences, tolerance of humanity and its diversity.
Wow, yes.
That's really where the message is. As I'm applying my observational thought and my observational mindset, things will go better for me. And the listener on the podcast is going, okay, all right, how do you develop a observational mindset when our brain is filled with language that activates criticism and judgment and activates separation and activates labels and diagnoses that we get to put on other people? And that's a big piece to really catch a hold of here.
Wow, Bill, I love that word you use, activates, because I think it very well captures what happens to a lot of people is that it's almost subconscious, right? Where certain language will activate something in them and cause a certain kind of response. So that really points out how choosing your words carefully as you communicate with others is really critical to maintaining a civil discourse.
It is. So why don't you give me one of those sentences, Tom? I think the sentence about it's unpatriotic to go to the White House. So
okay.
Give me that sentence, and I'll show you how that. So I'll show it as, and for those of you watching the video, I'm holding my fingers up here like I'm holding Tom's sentence as he does it, because I want to hold it in a place of observation, because if it hits me, I'm going to fight with whether it's true or not, which I don't want to be in that space at all. I wanted the space to be hold it in a place of observation so that I can apply a form of acceptance or understanding about why the person would say the thing.
Okay,
so
I'm going to do that. Okay, good, because I want to do this one, and then there's a couple other comments and rebuttals I want to go through because I think they're very interesting. Okay, so this was one of them. Comment was, it's great that the women's national team won for the U.S., but they are the U.S. national team, And they're a bunch of hypocrites because they won't go to visit the White House. How unpatriotic. That's one of them.
So watch my compassionate response to that. So it sounds like that you would like to honor the identity of the United States. And one of the duties and obligations, one of the things that you find valuable as a form of respect, is to go to the White House and put your personal needs aside and really meet the country's needs for respect and the country's need for loyalty. By going to the White House, even though you don't accept the president the way he is, or the administration for the things that they say or do, you would rather not activate or honor independence. You'd rather, like the soccer team, to honor respect and loyalty to the United States because it is their team that they're playing for. Is that correct?
Yes.
So now I just gave an empathetic and compassionate response to something. I didn't get into the argument on whether or not the sentence was true or not. I just had a civil discourse between, here's a person that is honoring their identity and their independence and the things they'd like to express, versus respect and loyalty for the team that is paying the bills.
That was a very good way to do that, Bill, wasn't it? You're not expressing a personal opinion so that they don't have a reason, or you wouldn't be activating them to attack you.
That's right.
You're talking about you would rather you're feeling and would rather see this instead of that. And what it does is it shows that there are two different perspectives to that situation.
Yeah, in past podcasts, we talked about these different perspectives of different as being two different versions of truth. And they are two different versions of truth. Do we honor the fierce independence that America promotes, the fierce self-reliance and fierce identity, or do we promote the respect and loyalty that also goes with American identity? Those are two different American identities.
They are, and they're in conflict with each other, are they not, at times?
They could, yeah, they are. In this case, they are, because if the civil discourse would allow some time for this to take place, if there wasn't a mutual acceptance of what's taking place, then the other side, whatever the other side is, could listen to each other, could live into the identity that the person requires. We need to come together and honor our different discourses. Yes, you don't want to go to the White House because the person doesn't meet your need for respect, but that's not why I want you to go to the White House. What I want you to go to the White House for is to respect the nation and be loyal to the nation and be loyal to the uniform. Therefore, I get to call you a hypocrite because you're wearing the American flag, but you're not living to my American values.
Wow, that's very well said, Bill. Very well said.
So very challenging.
Hold on. I have a need for power, so I have to plug this in. Okay, sorry. I don't want to have in the middle of our interview all of a sudden to lose power. So editors, I'm sorry, you got to cut that out. I had to get up and plug in my computer. You know what, Bill? It seems that Go ahead.
It's so important to recognize that there can be two values, two needs, and opposition of each other, and give a head nod to the one that you don't agree to. Listen, I really value American independence, and if she doesn't want to go, she doesn't want to go. Listen, I really see that I would really prefer respect and loyalty to the country and the flag that she's playing for and I would like her to go and put her personal needs aside to go after the country's needs instead.
Right.
Spend 5 minutes there, spend a day there.
But then she may have a need for integrity that if she's there, people are going to associate her with the president and his values. And, you know, so her perhaps need to be loyal to the United States is in conflict with her need for integrity and, you know, self-respect and other things, I'm sure, right? I mean,
yeah. So example, watch this. I'm going to do her pre and post media, her pre and post media before and after. It might sound like this. Listen, I'm a fierce, independent individual, and I really see that as an American value of mine. And a large part of me, about 80% of me, does not want to go and visit with the president for an photo op, because the way he speaks to other people and the values that he is talking about is something I don't agree with. And 80% of me, 90% of me does not want to go. But I'm choosing to go to this event in order to honor America and honor the flag that I'm wearing on my uniform as the winner of the U.S. team. She goes to the event. The pictures are taken. He says whatever he says. Post-conference. Yes, I do not agree with I don't agree with the things that the president says and the way he doesn't meet my need for kindness and respect. Integrity is allowing me to talk this way because as a fierce independent, which many Americans are, I chose to honor America for the half an hour that I was there for the photo opportunity, because that's a part of what I signed up for as America, as a part of the American team and what I stand for. And America has provided me the opportunity to be a fierce, independent individual. At the same time, I do not respect the president at the things that he says towards others. The things he says doesn't meet the need for kindness. The things he votes for does not meet my needs at all, or doesn't meet my specific needs for fairness for women, respect for women. I don't agree with that at all. Now notice she gets 2 more photo ops to talk about her point of view. She gets to honor the people, what do you call it, the haters. She's honoring the haters.
Yeah. She's
honoring the people that are angry with her. But if she's putting a bookend, a marker of integrity on both sides, it's a win-win-win for her. And
yeah, absolutely.
Her next message is equality in pay is the thing that's needed in America. And as a fierce, independent individual that works on their professional skill in soccer, fairness to me looks like they're getting paid this, we get paid this. And we need to work towards that as rapidly as possible in the United States, not just for my own job as a professional athlete, but for theirs.
Yeah, she could have used a White House visit as an opportunity to shine a lot more light on those issues that she finds very important, couldn't she?
That's correct.
Isn't that
now, politically, Bernie Sanders did that by going on Fox News. Pete Buttigieg did that by going on Fox News.
Right. Yeah.
And I can appreciate that from Elizabeth Warren not going and Kamala Harris not going, because guess what? They don't want to feed the beast. And I can appreciate that view. And I'm in a place of really strong civil discourse now where I agree with this part of it. I don't agree with this other part of it. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. And certainly, we live in a free country and people have the right to exercise their freedom of expression by not doing something, by not going to participate in something. But I think it's interesting how you've pointed out here that while your first instinct might be to boycott something, to shine a light on it, you might be able to achieve more by participating, approaching it with compassion and empathy, and having more opportunity to achieve your personal goals.
That's right. That's right. See, there's a way to do that, to engage in the process of it, to have that. So even whether it takes Colin Kaepernick to take a knee and the athlete to take a knee, on that thing, you could still book in that he could have and still can reframe and frame those events so that you don't give the other side any oxygen.
Oh,
that's what's happens, is that if you're not framing the event, the other side gets oxygen to say, wait a minute, blah, 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 blah. And then other people say, that's right. And now all of a sudden you got this entire spin-off.
Well, I find it very interesting, Bill, that you brought up Colin Kaepernick, because believe it or not, the discourse that took place in this Facebook post went from the U.S. soccer team to Colin Kaepernick. Not all that surprising. I was going to bring it up a little later. You beat me to it.
I didn't think about it.
So,
we're working on the same frequency here. Yeah. But yeah, that's what truth does. That's what the pursuing of truth does. See, we're pursuing it because many times it's at odds with each other. Different parts of truth are at odds with each other. The truth is that, yes, the American team, their salaries are being paid for by the American team, that people are funding for Americans to make Americans, and White House is a part of America. Yeah, that's true. Proportionally speaking, they might not agree with America in its current format. Well, welcome to the club, It's like I'm not agreeing with that. Listen, I don't like what do you call it? If I want to settle into this, I don't like. I think it's up to 67. No, it might not be that. Yeah, it's about 67 cents. 67 cents out of every tax dollar I pay goes to military or some other form of defense.
Right.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either.
I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all. And guess what? If I can vote my consciousness away from that. Meanwhile, some people do get scared into paying that amount of money for that. It's like, that's scary. Why? And we do get scared like that.
Yeah.
And we are able to build a $14 million drone that gets to be shot down. Do you think I like my money getting shot down over Iraq? Meanwhile, the person that would argue, well, we need to know what we're doing. We have over 50 bases all around their entire country.
Not to mention satellites looking down on every country on Earth.
Yeah. Why am I spending money on that drone?
Well, this is very interesting, Bill. You're reminding me of a quote from a movie that's, my gosh, now almost 25 years old, I think. But it's a quote of something that Michael Douglas said during that movie, The American President, where he said, America isn't easy. America is advanced citizenship, and you better want it because it's going to put up a fight. And I think that's the reality of it. I mean, the all the wonderful things we have in this country to protect us and give us freedom, there's no way we're all going to be in alignment with everything that happens. Who was it? Well,
our beliefs prevent us from that, regrettably.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, I really enjoy that quote too, is that it's advanced citizenship. You got to want it bad. You got to fight for it bad. And fighting for it bad is not fighting for your side. It's actually, if you really want to fight for truth, if you really want, you've got to fight for the other person's truth just as vibrantly. Because as soon as you fight for the other person's truth, they move over to your side.
Which is so counterintuitive.
It's counterintuitive. As soon as I connect to the person that I'm disagreeing with, as soon as they see me as another human being, I need to take the steps. I need to take the steps to let them see me as another human being. I can't expect them to look at me and go like, yeah, I know what's going on. So yeah, I believe your beliefs too. No, I've got to take the steps to build the connection, just like I did with the one quote you gave me. Just that was one quote. I saw the value of respect, the honesty of the hypocrisy of, you're wearing the uniform, you go to the White House because that's a part of America too.
Yep.
You go, the other part of America voted to have this guy in too. Hey, listen, we tolerated your guy for 8 years. Because that's the way they see it, is they tolerated our guy. But they use advanced messaging to say, hey, he wasn't that great. Meanwhile, we're looking at, wasn't that great. Didn't you notice? And the answer is no. One of the things that American government is terrible about is public relations. They do not do a great job of, when they succeed at something, talking about the benefits of it. This is what America got by the Clean Air Act. This is what America got from the Affordable Health Care Act. This is what we got. This is what we saved by pulling 30 million people off of the uninsured line. Because all of those people would have cost us this amount of money if they weren't insured.
Right.
That's what we saved. We don't talk about what we saved, the advantage, the win. No one talks about the win. The win is, what are you going to win next time? No, people talk about, and regrettably, the brain amplifies the loss or the mistake. It does not amplify the win.
Boy, so many things of that ring true to me about marriage too.
Oh my gosh. They're counting the partner, and this is the advanced citizenship of a marriage, is you've got to fight for the good thing that took place. You don't amplify the negative or the disconnect that showed up in the brain based on the thought of the last relationship or wherever the hell it's coming from, or what a friend said about, or what the latest author said about. You can't do that. You got to do it the other way. You got to amplify the thing that did show up, not minimize the thing that showed up.
Wow.
Or maximize the violence or the mistake that showed up.
So true, Bill. So true. All right. Hey, let's take another comment from this Facebook post, where this is somebody commenting who is not happy that the U.S. national team and Megan Rapinoe specifically are not going to the White House. It says, wait. She F-bombs when asked about visiting the White House, disrespecting the office. Now in parentheses, regardless of who is sitting there, he's still our president. Cry at night about it or not. And by the way, she's a role model for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of kids. Nice. So what she's saying is, because Megan Rapinoe used a 4-letter word when talking about how she's not going to go visit the White House, that she's disrespecting the office, and also by not going there is disrespecting the office. And when I heard that comment, I was like, Seems to me I've remembered a few four-letter words coming out of the president's mouth too.
Yeah, they don't count those.
They don't count those,
That's
right?
our team. That's our team. Yeah,
well,
so let's see if we can get back to respectful language. Is that, yes, it's really important for folks to pick respectful language, and regrettably, the ability to communicate nuances has been lost as soon as you can go and tilt all the way to, the F-bomb or any profanity word that is currently used and very available today, where it wasn't available 50 years ago, because as soon as you said it, people stopped. There was all kinds of problems as soon as you said something like that. Meanwhile, let's be empathetic and compassionate for what the person says. It sounds like this. You would like people to speak respectfully about the president. You would like people to speak respectfully about the office and about the White House. And you don't like it when people don't speak respectfully to each other. Is that correct?
yes.
The person would say yes. Now, what happens then is in their brain will start to remember the president saying those things and start to make him accountable. But if you say something disrespectful, they say, you're wrong, we're right. It's okay for us to be disrespectful because you're being disrespectful.
Gets to a little more black and white thinking.
Right. It's very much the way a 12-year-old or 13-year-old thinks about this. It's very much, it's a funny thing to say. Can you see how unsettling it is?
Well,
right?
I think that would be...
12-year-old comment said, your friend said this about me, and therefore, because your friend said this about me, it's a 12-year-old response. It's a 13-year-old response. I'm not going to be your friend anymore because you said this, because this person said you said this. It's like, wait a minute. You're talking about the need for respect. I get to talk to you that way because you talk to me and my team that way. Yeah. So it's a fairness narrative instead of an honest narrative about mutual respect. So compassion would look like, mutual respect looks like, and sounds like me not using profanity words. It would look like and sound like me going to the office of the president and taking the pictures because it represents America, and you would like my behaviors and my attitudes to be congruent with the nation of inclusion. And inclusion looks like the president's an American, you're an American, I'm an American, we're all tolerating this guy. And you would like me to go to demonstrate and be a model of toleration, being a model of inclusion, because I'm sending a message of inclusion if I go, because he's our guy, because our guy got voted in.
Boy, I think it would be much more effective if people would think about it that way and approach it a little differently.
Well, that's the whole reason why we're doing this podcast, is to have a healthy narrative so that a presidential candidate doesn't have to look for their edge. They don't have to look for the issue that they're fighting for. They don't have to go 20 years or 30 years or 50 years and say, hey, this thing is not right. And then finally we elect them because we're just tired of hearing the message. Or the message is finally being heard enough.
Right.
This message is mutual respect looks like.
Right.
This message is fairness looks like. This message is integrity looks like. I can see how some people see this, but integrity to me looks like this.
Yeah.
then we're able to get there.
Wow, that would be good. Hey, Bill, I've got another little a couple of comments here that
Sure.
this is a chain, not too long, and it's subtle. This is why I want to bring this one up. It's not the,
Good.
you know, so and so drops the F-bomb and all this sort of stuff that's more inflammatory. This to me is bias coming through. I want to see what you think about it. So remember, the quote up top was, "We've got to listen more and talk less." That's what one of the things in the quote Megan Rapinoe said. And here is what someone who commented on the post says to the author of the post. "She talks and talks and talks, not sure if she listens." Then the author of the post replies to say, "Why so many haters?" That same person who commented comes back and says, "Why does she have to be in everyone's face?" That to me is an interesting, subtle quote and a way of attacking Megan Rapinoe, because clearly the person saying this doesn't like her. It's like, well, why do we have to listen to her? Why does she have to be in everyone's face? Well, interestingly, the author post comes out and says, well, let's see, about 1 billion or so eyeballs have just seen her and her team win the World Cup. So, I mean, that's why she is in everybody's face. That's why she's getting all the media attention.
Oh, notice that truth doesn't help, by the way.
Right, it didn't.
Oh, it didn't. Yeah, that fact doesn't help. So let's do the first pullback. Okay, the first pullback is, go ahead, read the first sentence and then watch what I say next.
She talks and talks and talks, not sure if she listens.
So could you be feeling doubtful and skeptical, and you really need to trust that this person is really listening, and you also need some empathy for what it's like, not getting the kind of acceptance and support you would like by her going to the White House. You would like her to listen more and not to be as outspoken as she is. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you'd also like her not to be in your face, because it's almost like she's fighting for acceptance and she's not being heard, and you don't like her fighting the way she's fighting. Is that correct?
Yes. Well,
so how can we hear her message of integrity, and how can we hear her message of equality differently? How can you and I work towards equality and integrity so she doesn't have to be as in your face the way she is?
Interesting, Bill. I mean, to me, the whole "why does she have to be in everyone's face" comment is just a different kind of criticism of someone that's not on her team. And it was more subtle than "she's a hypocrite." She's unpatriotic. It wasn't labeling and diagnosing. It was kind of a subtle tap trying to be to the head of the elephant, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the be in your face has to do with emotional safety. See, people hold on to their beliefs, Tom, and it's not emotionally safe when they hear somebody else's belief that's maybe against theirs. One of the biggest challenges that we faced over the last basically 15, 20 years is the shift from marriage being between a man and a woman to marriage equality. And marriage equality is shifting. Got it?
Yep.
Marijuana being illegal to being medicinal, and now being okay recreational. See, there's these shifts going on, and all of the certainty that I used to have and all of the beliefs that I had in place, I don't want to re-question those. I don't want to face the fact that because my eyes are being opened up to the entire world. That's what the internet has done, is opened our eyes to the entire world to realize that there are more, this is when it gets tweaky, that there are more honor students in China than there are students in America.
Wow. That'll smack you in the face.
There's a numbers game problem here. If they've got more honor students than we have students, there's a little bit of problem here. My America number one. There's some problems. Make America great again? Oh, what does that mean? Well, it means believing that the 1950s identity that we had of being number one because of the war, World War II.
Right.
We did something altruistically back then. We won the battle, but let people have their own countries, even though we won the battle. Yeah. We put some military in their base in their country so that we could make sure they're behaving. And also put our own foothold so we can look at other countries too.
Sure.
Just saying.
Yeah.
to look for the next threat.
Wow.
That's the scary honesty part. The scary honesty is that this person needs empathy for their point of view. Their point of view is, I am scared. I don't want to change my beliefs and certainties. I don't want to question my religious beliefs. I don't want to question what my parents have told me.
Yeah, people don't like change.
I don't want to grow up.
Where is Never Neverland when you need it?
Right. I don't want to grow up and be an adult. Now, by the way, I have a 17-year-old at home.
Yeah.
And he literally looked at me and was like, you know what? If I do that thing, you're going to want me to do independent. Right, son? You've got to become more independent, son. This is your identity. You got to move forward. You got to grow up. I don't want to grow up, Dad. I want you to keep paying for stuff. You're going to make me pay for things. I'm going like, yeah,
that's the way it works.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Just gradually, not everything all at once.
Yeah.
But a little bit more. You've got to do a little bit more, and then do some skills, and then do some more, and then do something for others, and get paid, and do some more, and pay for more things, and then eventually, you will be paying for yourself. Huh? You mean I'll have to write bills and I have to pay checks? And we go like, yeah. That's why I got you a checking account, so you can start paying for things. Yeah, but I want to keep the money in my account. I go, great strategy. He's basically saying, I want you to keep paying for stuff, and I want you to take it out of your account to pay for things, but not out of mine.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Bill, there's one other interesting twist that I think we can kind of wrap up this episode with.
Yeah. Let's do that.
And bring a little closure.
It's great. You just froze up a little bit.
All right. I'll do it again.
Froze up a little.
Right.
Let's do that one.
I'll do it again. So, Bill, there's another little comment that takes this discussion of the U.S. women's soccer team and takes a twist on it that brings it into something that everyone, I think, in the United States was aware of in the last couple of years regarding the NFL and taking a knee during the national anthem.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the way you talked earlier.
The national anthem, correct.
Right. And I think the way you talked earlier about, being able to see both sides of the situation, this is another one that would apply to very well. So this comment, again, being critical of Megan Rapinoe, says she takes a knee at sporting events in which she represents our country. Like it or not, that's just plain wrong. This isn't the NFL. I don't really know what that means. This is not the quote. I don't really know what that means because the NFL has debated whether that's right or wrong too. But anyway, then this person finishes by saying there are plenty of other places to soapbox your causes. And so it's basically saying taking a knee in protest at a U.S. national event or at an NFL game where the national anthem is being played is just plain wrong. And again, I think, doesn't that illustrate what we said earlier in this episode about to me, patriotism means having the freedom to express myself. And, patriotism to you might be always standing during the national anthem. I mean,
There's think of it this way, Tom. People have a belief there's a time and a place for things, and the time and the place to do protest is not in the middle of the American
honoring America, sort of
honoring America.
Yeah.
So part of that is true. There is a time and the place. Regrettably, because we've lost the civil discourse, the time that's available, called the time and the place, it's hard to catch those windows of impact. So people are spraying words the way a machine gun shoots bullets. So they're spraying thoughts and ideas, just hoping something lands somewhere, instead of the mindful execution of communication, which here's where the bad news is that most people don't have the mindful execution of communication. That's why we're doing the podcast, is that how do you have the mindful execution of communication? How do you bring your adult voice and you say to your child voice, hey, listen, I don't need you right now. I don't have to. Please don't rant, but I want to say whatever I want to say. My parents never let me speak up, so I'm going to speak up in front of everybody. So we've got to get the congruency of language with that person, and really empathize with them and say, you would like us to hear that there's a time and place to speak up, and you would like us to hear there's better ways to fight for causes instead of the way that I'm choosing to fight for the cause. You would like me to have a better language in how I'm fighting for my cause. You would like me to prepare for how I'm fighting for my cause. You don't want me to use profanity or labels and diagnoses. You don't want me to call things out the way I see them. Is all that correct?
Yes.
Now I feel curious about what I just said and how much you heard about that.
I heard it all.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So good. I'm glad you heard that, because one of the biggest challenges is message sent is not necessarily message received. So we want to make sure that we're checking in with the deliverer of the message. And that goes back to one of the first quotes that you mentioned. I don't think she's listening. Well, a person could be listening, but they're listening through a filter. They're listening through their beliefs. And instead of really empathizing with, because that's really where deep listening takes place, they're not doing that.
Right.
What they're doing is they're listening through a point of view, and that leads us to judgment, leads us to criticism, blaming, shaming, all of those things, start getting activated, instead of, something more alive and volatile. Well,
Bill, I really appreciate that again, that key word today for me is activated. That's a big one today. I kind of, if there was a word of the day, that would probably be it for me. And because I think it's very helpful to understand that our language and communication skills have significant impact on other people and how they respond and communicate with us. And we can achieve a more respectful civil discourse, or we can at least strive for it, if we're more cognizant of the words we're choosing, if we approach things with compassion and empathy. I think it's been a great example of that today. That's not, it did delve into political a little bit, but it's really not at the heart of this is, well,
Well, the message translates politically very easily, and the nice part about today, the word activation, is that I want to activate what is the core message underneath the message that they're delivering. Because I'm activating, is this about mutual respect? Is this about being heard? Is it about integrity? Because that's what the word hypocrite means, is integrity. I want you to be integrity. If you're going to ask me for this thing, you got to be doing the same thing you're asking me for. Now, this weird part about it is that people have different scale of integrity. And the next time, I think that the word integrity might be something that we take out for a spin to talk about, what does that really mean to have integrity in a message? How do we create an identity that has integrity? And what does integrity look like, moving forward?
I think that'd be a very interesting discussion, because I think about that a lot. I had just something occur in business with me this week where somebody offered to pay me money for something, and I felt like I didn't really want to do that because I was not going to feel like I was in integrity. I was not going to be in alignment with integrity in myself.
Outside your scope of services, outside that.
So I look forward to that discussion.
All right, Tom. All right, well, this has been wonderful. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to get back into it with around how truth and integrity play off of each other.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.